I never thought a simple Monday morning could turn my life upside down, but then again, nothing about the past few months at work had been predictable. My name is Emma, and I had been working as an assistant at a mid-sized marketing firm for just over a year. I liked my job, the people were nice enough, and I never expected the professional boundaries I maintained to be blurred, until him. His name was Alexander Bennett, my boss. Tall, composed, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to read my mind at times, he commanded respect effortlessly. Yet there was something about him that went beyond professionalism, a subtle magnetism that left me both fascinated and anxious whenever he was around. That morning I was running late. My alarm had betrayed me, and the usually calm streets had become chaotic with commuters honking and shoving past one another. I grabbed my coat, shoved my laptop bag over my shoulder, and dashed to the street. My car wouldn't start, of course. Heart racing, I debated calling a cab when, to my astonishment, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Emma? I turned, and there he was, Alexander, standing beside his sleek black car, a faint smile on his face. Need a lift? He asked casually, but I could feel the undercurrent of something unspoken. Yes, thank you. I stammered, hopping in without thinking. The ride was quiet at first. Alexander drove with his usual precision, hands firm on the wheel, eyes forward, as though nothing else in the world mattered. I tried small talk, asking about traffic, commenting on the weather, but he only smiled faintly, replying in short, deliberate sentences. I couldn't help but notice how close we were sitting in the front seat, the hum of the engine filling the silence between us. Emma, he said suddenly, his voice quieter than usual, almost intimate. I've been meaning to talk to you about something important. My heart skipped. I knew that tone, calm, serious, yet impossibly warm. About work? I asked, though my voice trembled slightly. He glanced at me, his eyes softening. Not exactly. It's personal, but I don't want to pressure you. I felt a flush creeping across my cheeks. My mind raced with possibilities, none of which felt safe or appropriate. Yet there was something in his gaze that made me want to listen, to lean closer, to trust him. As we approached the station, the city's usual hustle seemed to fade into the background. I noticed how the sunlight caught his hair just right, how the calm confidence he always exuded softened in this private moment. Emma, he continued, his voice almost a whisper now, I've admired your dedication for a long time. More than just professionally. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know. I turned to him, speechless, caught between shock and an overwhelming sense of something tender, something dangerous. The words hung in the air, electric and fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Before I could respond, we reached the station. The familiar sounds of trains and announcements seemed distant, almost unreal. I opened the door, ready to step out, but he stopped me with a hand on the seat. Emma, one more thing, he said softly. Tonight. If you want, meet me at the cafe, by the river. No work, no expectations. Just us. I nodded slowly, my mind spinning, and stepped out, the cold wind hitting me like a splash of reality. I watched him drive away, feeling a strange mix of exhilaration and fear. As I boarded my train, I couldn't stop replaying the moment in my head. His words, his eyes, the unspoken tension, it was intoxicating. For the first time, I wondered what it would be like to cross the line, to risk everything for a chance at something real. That night, I found myself standing outside the little riverside cafe, nerves and anticipation tangled together. And then I saw him, Alexander, already seated, looking more relaxed than I had ever seen him in the office. The moment our eyes met, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of us. Emma, he said warmly, standing to greet me. I'm glad you came. Me too, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. As we settled into the small table by the window, the city lights reflecting off the water behind him, I realized that my life had just changed forever. The boss I had respected, perhaps even admired from afar, was now someone I might fall for, and the thought both thrilled and terrified me. We talked for hours, about trivial things at first, then deeper stories, our pasts, our fears, our dreams. Every word he spoke felt personal, intimate, as though the world outside the cafe didn't exist. And when our hands brushed accidentally, it wasn't awkward. It was electric, a spark that neither of us could ignore. By the time the cafe began to empty and the waiters started cleaning tables, I realized something crucial. I was falling for my boss. And judging by the look in his eyes, he was falling for me too. But the reality of the office, the boundaries, the consequences, they loomed over us like a storm cloud. I didn't know how we would navigate it, or even if we should. Yet, for the first time in a long while, I felt alive, daring, ready to take a risk. As we parted that night, Alexander leaned in close and whispered, "Tomorrow we'll figure it out. Together." And with that promise, my heart raced, knowing that my ordinary Monday had transformed into something extraordinary, and there was no turning back. The morning after our cafe meeting, I found myself staring at my reflection in the mirror far longer than usual. My heart was still racing, my thoughts tangled with the events of the previous night. I wasn't sure if I was more excited or terrified. Alexander had crossed a line that neither of us could deny, but reality was still waiting. The office, deadlines, expectations. Walking into the firm felt different that day. The fluorescent lights, the low hum of computers, the chatter of colleagues, all of it seemed muted. Every step I took, every sound I heard, made me hyper-aware that Alexander would be there, probably sitting behind his desk, looking calm, collected, as if nothing had changed. And yet, nothing could have been further from the truth. When I entered the office, he was already there, reviewing documents, his pen tapping rhythmically on a folder. Our eyes met across the room, and a subtle, almost imperceptible smile crossed his face. My stomach flipped. He didn't rush to speak, and I didn't either. Instead, the morning unfolded in a strange, suspended silence, punctuated only by shared glances, lingering just a moment too long. It was a silent acknowledgement of the night we had shared, a promise of something unspoken yet palpable. By noon, we were in a meeting with a high-profile client, and our professional personas took over. Alexander was brilliant, commanding the room with ease, but every now and then, his eyes would flick to mine, a private signal in the chaos. My pulse raced with each glance, my fingers tightening around my notebook, pretending to take notes while secretly stealing small moments of connection. After the meeting, he leaned slightly closer than necessary as he handed me a stack of papers. "Good work," he murmured, and the intimacy of that whisper made my knees weak. The day passed in a blur of projects and calls, each one an exercise in keeping our newfound closeness hidden. By evening, I was exhausted, mentally and emotionally, yet a thrill lingered that I couldn't shake. When Alexander asked if I could stay late to help finalize a proposal, I felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. The office was quiet, the city lights shimmering outside the windows, casting long shadows across the room. As we worked side by side, the proximity was electric. Our shoulders brushed, our hands occasionally met while passing documents. Each accidental touch sent sparks through me, each glance carried unspoken meaning. At one point, I looked up from my laptop to find him watching me. Not in the casual, managerial way, but with a softness and intensity that made my breath catch. "Emma," he said, voice low, almost vulnerable. "Are you comfortable with this?" I blinked, unsure what he meant. "With what?" I asked, trying to sound composed, though my voice betrayed my nerves. Thus," he whispered. "I don't want to pressure you, but I also can't ignore what's between us." The honesty in his tone, the raw sincerity in his eyes, made my heart ache. I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's complicated, Alexander. We could get hurt. We could ruin everything." He nodded slowly, understanding, yet his hand found mine briefly, a fleeting but deliberate touch. "I know, but I can't stop feeling this, and I don't want to." Time seemed to slow. The office, usually a place of rules and schedules, became a private world just for us. The tension was electric, a tightrope we were both walking, aware that one wrong step could shatter everything. As the clock ticked past midnight, we finally finished the proposal. I stretched, rubbing my tired eyes, and Alexander leaned against the desk, looking at me in a way that made my chest tighten. "Emma," he said softly, stepping closer. "Tonight can we just be ourselves? No work, no rules. Just us." I hesitated, but the longing in his eyes mirrored my own. I nodded, unable to resist. We left the office together, the streets of the city quiet and almost deserted. Alexander drove, but the usual tension of traffic was absent, replaced by a comfortable silence. Occasionally, our hands would brush, lingering longer each time, until finally, he reached over and held my hand. The simple gesture was electrifying, more intimate than words could ever be. I glanced at him, and he smiled softly, a mix of reassurance and desire. We stopped at a small park, the benches empty, the faint glow of street lamps casting shadows around us. Alexander turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "Emma, I know this is reckless, but I can't hide how I feel. I want this us, even if it's messy, even if it's complicated." I swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "I want it too," I admitted, my voice trembling. Then, as if drawn together by an invisible force, we leaned in. Our lips met softly at first, tentative, testing, before the kiss deepened, growing more urgent and desperate. The world around us disappeared. The office, the rules, the consequences, all of it faded. There was only us, only this connection that had been simmering for months, now unleashed. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, Alexander rested his forehead against mine. "We'll figure it out," he whispered. "No matter what." I nodded, feeling the truth of his words. Whatever lay ahead, gossip, boundaries, challenges, we had crossed a line we couldn't unsee. And for the first time, I felt an undeniable certainty. Alexander Bennett wasn't just my boss. He was becoming something far more important, something I couldn't imagine my life without. But even in that moment of bliss, a shadow lingered in the back of my mind. How long could we hide this? How long before the reality of our office, of our positions, caught up with us? As we parted that night, Alexander pressed a soft kiss to my hand and smiled. "Tomorrow we'll navigate it together," he said. And as I walked home, my heart pounding, I realized that our forbidden closeness was both intoxicating and terrifying, and I was utterly, hopelessly addicted. The days that followed were a delicate dance between desire and discretion. Every interaction with Alexander felt like walking on a tightrope. We were both acutely aware of the stakes. An office romance between a boss and his assistant could destroy careers, reputations, even friendships, but the pull between us was undeniable. At work, we maintained the facade of professionalism. Meetings, calls, emails, all handled with precision. Yet, beneath the surface, every glance, every subtle touch carried a weight of unspoken emotion. Even a shared coffee break became a charged moment, a silent acknowledgement of what had begun outside office walls. One evening, Alexander asked me to stay late again, ostensibly to review the final details of a major campaign. As the office emptied, the city lights casting long shadows through the glass walls, I felt the tension coiling between us. "Emma," he began, his voice low and serious, "I've been thinking. We can't keep sneaking around. Not forever." I nodded, feeling the gravity of his words. "I know, but what choice do we have? If anyone finds out..." He stepped closer, resting a hand on my desk, his eyes searching mine. "I don't care what anyone thinks. I care about us. But we need to be honest. Honest with ourselves first, then with everyone else." His determination made my heart ache. I wanted to be brave, to step into the unknown with him, but the fear of judgment and consequence gnawed at the edges of my resolve. "Alexander, what if it ruins everything?" I asked quietly. "Our jobs, the office, our reputations." He smiled, gently, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Then we face it together. I've never felt this way about anyone before. And I'm not letting it go, no matter how complicated it gets. We stood there, the hum of the city outside mingling with the quiet of the office. It was a pivotal moment, a choice that could change our lives forever. And in that suspended silence, I realized I had already made my choice. "Then let's do it," I whispered. "Let's see where this goes. Together." The relief and joy that crossed his face was immediate, yet tempered with caution. We spent the next few weeks navigating our newfound relationship with care, secrecy, and stolen moments of intimacy. Lunchtime walks in secluded courtyards, brief touches under conference tables, whispered messages during long meetings. It was thrilling, dangerous, and utterly consuming. But inevitably, the world outside our bubble began to intrude. Gossip, subtle questions from colleagues, and the occasional knowing glance reminded us that our secret could not stay hidden forever. One Friday evening, after a long week of work, Alexander invited me to his apartment, insisting that we needed uninterrupted time together. As I entered his place, the city skyline stretching beyond the windows, I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. "Emma," he said, taking my hands in his, "I want us to be open. No more hiding, no more half-truths. I want to be with you, fully, even if it means taking risks." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words sink in. "I want that too. But are we ready for what comes next?" He smiled, the same confident, reassuring smile that had first drawn me in. "We'll face it together, no matter what." And in that moment, all doubts and fears seemed to dissolve. We kissed, not the tentative, testing kiss of our first encounter, but a deep, passionate embrace that spoke of commitment, desire, and trust. For the first time, our connection felt unbreakable. Over the next few weeks, we gradually let select colleagues know, carefully controlling the narrative to avoid scandal while establishing that our relationship was genuine and consensual. To our surprise, most people were supportive, though a few whispered doubts lingered. Through it all, Alexander remained my anchor. His patience, understanding, and unwavering devotion made the challenges bearable. And I, in turn, discovered a strength within myself I hadn't realized existed, the courage to embrace love, even when it was complicated and risky. One rainy evening, as we walked home from a late dinner, Alexander stopped beneath the glow of a street lamp. He pulled out a small, velvet box and opened it, revealing a delicate ring. "Emma," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't want to imagine my life without you. Will you be with me? Not just in secret, not just quietly, but completely, fully, and forever." Tears welled in my eyes as I looked at him. The city blurred around us, and all that mattered was the man in front of me who had transformed my ordinary life into something extraordinary. "Yes," I whispered, my voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Alexander, I will." He slid the ring onto my finger, and we embraced, rain washing over us, yet unable to dampen the fire between us. In that moment, all fears, doubts, and societal expectations faded. There was only us, only our love, and the promise of a future we would face together. From that day forward, our relationship blossomed openly, blending romance with respect, passion with patience, and excitement with trust. We faced challenges, of course, rumors, questions, moments of doubt, but every obstacle strengthened our bond rather than weakening it. Alexander was no longer just my boss, and I was no longer just his assistant. We were partners, equals in love and life, navigating the complexities of our world with courage and devotion. And looking back, I realized that everything, the late mornings, the secret rides, the stolen kisses in quiet corners, had led us here, to a love that was worth every risk, every heartbeat, every moment of uncertainty. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary stories begin with the most unexpected moments, like a boss quietly speaking on the way to the station, igniting a love neither of us could have predicted.